Hey, good morning, everybody. So much to talk about this morning. Regional banks are in a world of hurt this morning. I'm going to bring up a couple of banks that make me extremely nervous. First symbol, WAL, Western Digital. Second symbol, PACW, PacWest Bank Corp of Delaware. And then Charles Schwab, which is the fourth largest bank. First Republic is down 64%. The SPY is down, a quarter to a half a percent at 384.42. So let's talk about what happened over the weekend. You had one of the largest bank failures, the number 16 bank, which was Silicon Valley. Now, the good news for investors is the Fed came out and the SEC came out and they said they will back all unsecured deposits, which is a positive thing. So we won't see the banking industry collapse today, which was worrisome. Now, people are saying, was that a bailout? No, a bailout's when they use taxpayer money. What they're doing is they're going to lever these banks with additional fees to cover the cost of the so-called, let's just call it a bailout, even though it's not a bailout because taxpayers aren't splitting the bill on this one. For instance, JP Morgan put $70 billion worth of liquidity up for these smaller banks, but these smaller banks are going to get hurt because these smaller banks that have these deposits that the government's not saying they're going to secure these deposits going forward. So, I mean, if I was at a small regional bank and I had $1 million, what would I do? I'd be withdrawing $750,000 and moving it over to JP Morgan Chase, potentially a Morgan Stanley, maybe a Bank of America, but I'd go to JP Morgan Chase, probably Citigroup, something to that extent. With that said, we saw rates drop substantially. If you look at the 2-year and the 10-year rate, and we'll talk about the Fed because we've got a lot of interesting news coming out this week. We've got CPI out tomorrow. Let me just read you guys the list of what I'm paying attention to this week, and then we could talk about what the Fed is doing, the 2-year rate, the 10-year rate, et cetera, et cetera. So this week, let's just find it first. Okay, we've got CPI information data dropping on Tuesday, PPI data dropping on Wednesday, retail sales dropping Wednesday, okay? New York Fed factory index Wednesday, Philly Fed factory index Thursday, jobless claims, which we know push the market Thursday, housing starts Thursday. All are going to be poor numbers, consumer sentiment Friday. I mean, you're looking at just poor numbers over poor numbers over poor numbers. What could help if CPI comes in less than expected? If PPI comes in down as well, that tells you inflation is somewhat subsiding. However, with what happened with the banks, let's understand we had Silvergate fail, then we had Silicon Valley Bank fail, then we had Signature Bank of New York fail over the weekend. These are 3 failed banks so far in 2023. Understand, if you date back till 2009, we've had over 500 banks fail. Over 500. So people that are like shocked, oh my God, these banks are failing. The economy is doomed. We're going into, some type of parabolic activity in the market. No, we've had 500 banks fail literally in the last 13 years. The biggest one being Washington Mutual, which failed and then was taken over. SIVP, BP is pretty substantial. So let's just say what's going to happen here. No, I was looking at gold. Okay, so we'll talk about the Fed and what they've priced in. So if you haven't seen the Fed funds rate or the Fed swaps rate, which tells you if they're going to be interest rate hikes in March at the Fed meeting, May at the Fed meeting, June at the Fed meeting. Remember, we were talking about 3 to 4 interest rate hikes before the end of the year. Now, based on the Fed swaps number, which has come down a lot, they're saying they're going to be Fed cuts by the end of the year, that the market is pricing in 50 basis points of Fed cuts by the end of the year. So whereas everybody was expecting 50 basis point increase when the Fed speaks next week, now people are expecting 25 basis points. And now I've heard that there probably won't even be an interest rate hike next week to stabilize the economy. Understand the 2-year interest rate has come down 50 basis points overnight. The 10-year has come down substantially overnight. This is to help out the potential of these bank failures, except it's going to put more pressure on these smaller regional banks, which again is why I started out this broadcast by telling you about some of the smaller regional banks that are going to struggle. WAL, Western Alliance, PacWest Bancorp of Delaware, PACW. Even Charles Schwab was down as much as 20% pre-market. Then it went to only 6% down, and now it's down close to 10%, 9.91. So, I mean, me for a trade for today, I'm probably going to look at Charles Schwab. I'm probably going to see where that plays out, what I can get in with, and look to secure some profit on that one. The SPY is now down 0.5% at 383.82. Understand 383 is a magical number. That's a nice dark pool level. If we drop today and market ends up similar to what it does Friday, what can you anticipate with the SPY? Well, I could see the SPY dropping to 378, which is another 5 points from where we are now. So that would be a 7-point drop on the day. It would be a worse drop than Friday. That's your bear case scenario. So we'd go down about 1.6% in the market, which would be pretty substantial. I'll give you your bull case scenario. Your bull case scenario is, well, we saw what happened to futures after the Fed made their announcements last night and after the rates dropped. Futures spiked up. The Dow was up over 1%. The SPY was up 1.4%. The NASDAQ was up 1.4%. So what do I do on days like this? I look for stocks that have demand to be bullish on. I look for stocks that have outflow day after day to be bearish on. So I'm going to talk about a few stocks, and then we'll get back to the SPY ranges. I gave you your bear case scenario. I'm just going to let it play out a little more because right now we're sitting at 383.50, which is a key inflection point in the market. So, okay, we'll go over it again. Western Alliance, PacWest, Charles Schwab, First Republic is down 62% pre-market. I'm looking at some Chinese stocks because they popped overnight. The Chinese market went up 2% based on the futures were green at the time, the Fed's comments, the interest rates dropping. So what do I think will happen? I think you could probably fade Chinese stocks today. Bill Holdings, probably Alibaba. I'm going to hold on to Baidu. Baidu still looks strong. We can look at DraftKings. DraftKings, which was up 2.8% pre-market, is now down 2.32%. So if I was going to get bullish on a certain stock, I might look to get bullish on DraftKings later in the day, assuming today is an outflow day and DraftKings is off 2, 3, 4% at some time. Right now, it's only off 2.32. I'd look for it to drop maybe 4.5%. 4.5%, I might enter into calls. I might go out a month or something to that extent. Okay, we can talk about Silvergate, SI. Remember, this is kind of a meme stock bank, very into crypto. You can see your outflow. Now, I don't think Silverbank's going to be safe, so somebody can come in and buy them out. If not, the stock has a potential to go to zero. So the fact that was at 343 on Friday, then it closed at 252, and it's down 6.75% this morning at $2.32. I mean, this stock could potentially go to zero. Am I going to play it? No, because I haven't put in the research enough for this individual play, but it does interest me. So if I wanted to get more aggressive, I'd be doing more research to see who their debtors are, who their creditors are, etc. We've got Salesforce. Again, you could be bearish Salesforce. I saw a reaction the other day where it made me think Salesforce was finally a buy. But now that the markets are unstable, it's likely to go down to the spot that it was at pre-earnings, which is about $168. The fact that we're at 171 pre-market. Can you hold off on doing that? I'll do that later. Okay, appreciate that. If I was going to get bullish a stock, I might look at Boeing. Boeing received support from the FAA over the weekend, saying that they can now produce their 737 MAX jets. So again, Boeing popped all the way up to 205 off that news around 2 p.m. on Friday, and then you can see pre-market it's getting pretty beat up. It's under 203, and we closed at 203. So again, if I was going to get bullish on a stock, I might get bullish on Boeing. I might get bullish on DraftKings. If I was going to be bearish on a stock, I might be bearish on Silvergate. We've heard what is it? The chip plays. I've been somewhat bearish on those as well. Again, Nvidia at 229, I mentioned, has the potential to go back to $212 a share. I mentioned that last week. That would also put downward pressure on AMD, Micron, STX, etc. So when I'm looking at NVIDIA pre-market at what, 226 and change, 226 and a quarter, just dropped substantially. It was at $230 not too long ago. So again, if I see the outflow, if I see downward pressure, if I see some type of bounce, I could get bearish on that. I've got Amazon here. I've got Rivian. Again, Amazon showed some support the other day, but as the market continues to get beat up, I could see Amazon dropping. It broke its 3-month average. I could see it dropping down to the $85 range or $84 range, where I would want to buy Amazon. Long-term investment. Understand the stock market isn't about options. Yes, us day traders love to trade options and love to day trade. But most of the money in the stock market is a longer term investment. So again, I'm looking for entry points on stocks that I would want to be bullish on, stocks that I want to be bearish on, like CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike had earnings. Ever since earnings, we've seen 3 or 4 straight outflow days. Let me just see. I guess we've seen 4 straight outflow days. Volume should be a little more substantial today. So again, where could I see CrowdStrike going? Well, I could see CrowdStrike heading back to $104, $105. It's at $117 pre-market, closed at $119. So these are just stocks on my watch list. I wouldn't mess with Tesla. Tesla's had 5 straight outflow days. It's at $173. But let's remember when it was at 208, 204, 198, 192, all good entry points. At 173, and it actually ended up half a point on Friday. So there were some people that were buying to Tesla off the dip. I would look to stay away, especially when it's off 4% pre-market. I mentioned Coinbase because Coinbase has a ton of money at Signature Bank. I think they have $250 million now. The Fed and the SEC hasn't come out and said that people that have uninsured money at Signature Bank, which means anything over $250,000, are going to be covered the same way they said that for Silicon Valley Bank. Now, understand they said it for Silicon Valley Bank because you have all these startup companies that are paying their employees with deposits at Silicon Bank, and hedge funds stepped in over the weekend, and they started offering some of these companies that are startup companies that have a ton of money over at Silicon Bank 60 cents, 80 cents on the dollar for their deposits. So the fact that the SEC said we're going to make you whole, you don't have to worry about your unsecured deposits. Some of these hedge funds probably profited 25% on hundreds of millions of dollars over the weekend. Fredo, we could talk about Carvana. Again, I have 3 Carvana calls. I'm also in Boyle calls. That's the only thing I held over the weekend. As far as Carvana, I didn't anticipate the tightening of the money supply and the fact that these hedge funds and these other startups are having money issues. Carvana, in retrospect, wasn't the best play. What am I going to do, though? Carvana could easily squeeze. I'm in for 3 options. I'm in for $180. Not the end of the world. Again, I don't want to ride a losing trade, so I'm going to really let this one play out today, see what happens in the market. Because understand, futures were ripping, and then we went from ripping to pretty ugly right now. Another positive stock, or a stock that has some demand lately, is Meta. Now, we mentioned this on Friday. Meta was up 2.2%, went from up 2.2% to down 2.2%, only finished down 1.20%. It's up pre-market, sitting at $180. We closed at $179.50, so it's up 50 cents. But understand, it's going to be hard for Meta to go higher if Apple, Netflix, Tesla, the whole market is getting crushed. But yes, if I had to pick a play, that if I had to pick one stock that I had to be positive on or bullish on, I would probably pick Boeing. I would probably pick Meta. I would probably pick something that has a little oomph behind it, a little substance behind it. Again, Meta's not disappearing. Boeing, one of the largest providers of jets out there, and they have some other products as well. I mean, yeah, Boeing's not going away. Boeing, the airlines aren't going away. People are still traveling, things of that nature. So let's just go back to the SPY and talk about potential ranges on the SPY today. The first thing I'll do is I'll go over to Discord and I'll open this up and look at the dark pool levels. We see a dark pool level at 385.50. Smaller levels because we haven't been trading in this range for a while. So the next dark pool level is right at 383, and then we'd have to drop down to 380 and then 378. So those are the levels that I'm looking at for support today. I don't think the market is going to drop and just not rebound. So I think there's going to be somewhat of a nice sell-off a continuation at open. If there's a pop at open, then I know that some institutions are going to be buying puts on the open on any pop. Let's go to some information real quick that I just wanted to share because I take down all these notes over the weekend. Sometimes I forget. I mentioned Charles Schwab. I mentioned the three failures: Silvergate, Silicon Valley, and now Signature Bank. This is why it's not a bailout. It's not a taxpayer bill. All banks will be levied an additional tax on the additional risk that they have to cover the FDIC insured money. So they're going to be paying up on these levied taxes. And understand the market went from calling for a 50-point base rate hike to zero rate hike. When the Fed speaks and meets next weekend, they have an emergency meeting today at 11:30 a.m. The information will not be dropped. But we're talking about the March 22nd meeting. Now there's a ton of uncertainty. So I'm hearing from 50 basis points to 25 basis points to zero. So now I'm hearing zero, which is why you saw the Fed swaps rate come down. Fed swaps rate now prices in 50 basis points of cuts by the end of the year. So we were talking about 3 or 4 rate hikes before the end of the year. Now we're talking about a 50 basis point cut before the end of the year. Here's another one. We all know that Credit Suisse is struggling. Credit Suisse default swaps hit an all-time high. So if there was a next bank to fail, I'd be looking at Credit Suisse. Why? Just poorly run company. Masses. Let's talk about the SPY again. SPY puts just after market close on Friday. There were 2 SPY puts of $34 million. And here's what the SPY puts looked at. Let me just see if I get this in front of my phone. These are SPY puts all day. So these are people entering into these SPY put contracts or selling the SPY puts and collecting the premiums, but most likely heading, entering into those contracts. As far as dark pool levels on the SPY, we had nearly 4 billion reported off exchange at 391. Yeah, so as the SPY is sitting at 383 pre-market, we're going to assume that's selling. There was an additional 2.5 billion exchange at almost 386 at 385.96, and then again at 385.92. So right under 386. So here's your scenario. If the SPY was to go up to 386 this morning, I think it will reject. So the fact that we're sitting at, let's just see where we're at the pre-market, get the SPY up here. It's not coming up. Pre-market, we're sitting on the SPY. Oh my God, it just dropped substantially now. Now we're at 381. So if you want to look at the drop, I mean, it's substantial. No wonder it's not on the chart because I didn't have that. But in the last few minutes, you can see since I've gone live before 8 o'clock or before 9 o'clock, 8:30, you can see the drop on the SPY. So we're at 381.40 again. So I'm giving you the scenario. Where am I looking for the SPY to trade today? On the top side, if we get there, and we're at 381 right now and change, 386. Why? Because some people are offloading their SPY in the dark pool right under 386. So let's say 386 on the top. The fact that we're trading at 381 right now tells me we could go down to 379 today. So if I was going to say we're going to range trade today, again, I would still be more bearish than I would be bullish. I would say your ranges today, if we pop at any point and we pop to 386, I'd be buying puts and riding it back down to 381. If we're at 381, wouldn't surprise me if we see a drop to 378. At 378, I do think we'll see a little support. But then you got to look at the macro. The overall macro is, shit, we've got CPI coming out tomorrow. We have PPI on Wednesday. We have more jobs numbers, housing starts, and then consumer confidence. All I'm thinking after this latest transition over the weekend, telling me that all these numbers are to come in shit. And the market is probably going to lose support. Time to go for support. So let me ask you a question, or Josh, or let me make a comment. What you're looking to do is anytime you think that a stock is going to go higher, you want to find a stock that has a good balance sheet. A company like Affirm, buy now, pay later. I mentioned over 47% of their users that buy now and pay later are paying late. I'm not sure how many are actually defaulted and haven't made any payment, but I would stay the heck away from companies like Affirm, Upstart. I want to stay away from any companies that don't have revenue, that haven't issued good guidance, any companies that have decent revenue. Okay, let's mention like one of my favorite companies, Zim, Z-I-M. I'll be hopping into that today. Why? That's a shipping company. They came out with fourth quarter results. They shot it. It was off the charts. Their results pretty decent. The stock was up as much as 15% pre-market. Now that the market's getting beaten up and the SPY is now sitting at $380, so it keeps going down. I'm going to look at Zim real quick. Let me just see if I can find it. Thought I had it here. Okay. So we're up 12% pre-market. Again, it's not really coming back. I was hoping Zim would drop down to where it was pre-market, maybe only up 3 or 4%. I could hop in and get that 15% move. But again, it's finding support. I'll be watching Zim during the day. I might be looking to enter at like a $21 clip. Right now it's 21.04 pre-market. I saw it as high as 22.50. No, it's 22 right now, up 12.5%. So again, I would be looking for this one to come down another 50 cents, which is another 3%. Anything under, 8, 7%, I'm going to hop in and I'm going to take outdated calls. Yeah. And you think a firm should go bankrupt? Yeah, unfortunately, their technology and things would probably lead to someone buying them out. We can see SoFi continues to drop at $5.42. At some point, that'll be interesting. Companies like TDOC, remember TDOC was $32. And I said they don't have earnings. The only support they have is from Kathy and whatsoever. They're down to $23. So TDOC would be on the negative side. Any companies that don't have earnings, Uber, negative side. AMC, even though I like that, negative side. DDOG, negative side. Lucid, negative side. Bumble's been breeding up pretty much. I'm going to stay away from that one. Carnival, remember Carnival was $12. We should fade Carnival. Well, Carnival's at $9.69 off another 2.5% this morning, so it's back under $9.50. Well, aren't people sailing? Yeah, they're sailing, but I mean, Carnival's got a lot of struggles. Okay, here's a stock. Intel had a ton of buying last week. I thought Intel could drop substantially, so I will be, without trading with emotion, I'll be looking at Intel both ways today because Intel's had some major inflows, some major buying. Pushed from $24 up to $27. It was even up 3% on Friday, one of the leaders in the market when the market was falling apart. So there's some people that are buying on Friday. They're not going to sell it. They're holding longer term. So I might look for some type of pullback to go longer on Intel with, outdated options, maybe 3 months out. Okay. So again, we'll just cover the SPY ranges again. Let me just bring that up and see where the SPY is sitting, probably at 381 again. Yeah. So again, we dropped down a couple minutes ago to 380 and change. We're at 381.57. What am I expecting to happen? Well, because the market's so beat up overnight, what's probably likely to happen is we're either going to pop to furthermore drop and see 378. So these are two strategies. If I see the market pop, once I see the market reject, that's when I want to get into my puts. Now, if I see the market just drop substantially out of the gate, boom, 379, 378, I'm going to look for support. Now, I did this on Friday. I traded the SPY twice. I made one good SPY trade and one terrible SPY trade. The first good SPY trade, the terrible SPY trade I made is I was looking at the 1 minute. I saw a turnaround on the SPY, meaning it was going to rebound and go back up. But I was looking at the 1 minute chart, which is my sniper chart. So I was a little early on that. It dropped. I got stop lost out on that one. Later in the day, it went back up. I could have got out break even. With that said, the other trade that I made on the SPY were SPY calls. I think it was like 2:45 or 2:55 p.m. and I bought some SPY calls at like a buck 40, something like that. I rode them up to $2, implying what was it, a 47% gain. I looked 5 minutes after I sold and they were at $3, up over 100%. So again, it was a good trade. It was a profitable trade. I ended Friday the right way, but I still left a ton of money. I left, over $1,000 on the table. And if you leave $1,000 a day on the table, I mean, that shit adds up. So we got to do the right thing there. Somebody's asking me about NVIDIA. I mentioned it earlier, Michael. Your bear case scenario is the same bear case scenario I mentioned last week when NVIDIA was sitting at $235. I said it could easily, if the sell-off continues and we see a sell-off in NVIDIA, I don't know, for another week or so, you could see $212, $214 before you find support. Again, the chip sector that was doing quite well started having outflow. People are thinking the PEs on NVIDIA, AMD, Micron, STX are a little high. So again, what I would be doing for NVIDIA is I would probably be using Discord. And what would I do? I'd go on Discord and I would look at the flow sum. I would look at the net flow. So net flow of NVIDIA. I would look at the algo flow for NVIDIA. And let me bring this up. Make sure you guys can see this. Okay, you can. So the first thing, let's look at the net flow together. Okay, here we go. Here's the flow sum for the SPY. So here we go. What you can see in the SPY is open interest SPY, close to 9 million open interest in put side, 2 million in the positive side. Premiums paid, $500 million on the put side, only 200 million on the call side. So we know that the market is extremely bearish. But when we go down and speak about NVIDIA specifically, here you go. Let's just pop this open. So what you can see is premiums for puts extremely high, over 0. We're closing out on 5, 5.5, 6. Pricing on calls, again, hasn't really moved. I would get out of calls if I saw this drop to a -6 to a -8 as far as the stock price. What you see, I mean, it's just extremely bearish. And for me to change my mind, I would have to see the flow change. So I'm looking at the algo flow. Again, algo flow tells you what the computer thinks should be happening versus the stock price for NVIDIA. So again, it's likely that they're going to cross over. If they're going to cross over, they're probably going to cross over a little lower. So I'd say something like right in here, you know, the 228, 229 level. And again, if you were to tell me NVIDIA is, let's see where NVIDIA is trading pre-market. NVIDIA pre-market, probably at 225. Okay, so yeah, 225, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen with NVIDIA. I tell you, if the market's going to get ugly over the next 2 weeks, I can see NVIDIA dropping to 212. But I'm sure you're curious about what NVIDIA is going to do today. So, I mean, if I had to wager a guess on NVIDIA at 225, I would say it would head up closer to VWAP, which is 230. So, I mean, again, I'm expecting the market to bounce a little. Futures were ripping pretty well when the Fed came out with their announcement, when the rates got lowered, when people are now saying 0% interest rate hike March 22nd when the Fed next speaks. If that's all true, we've all learned that as the 2-year, the 10-year drop, the markets should go up. Now, interesting. And yes, I am sick again, everybody. I think I have the flu. I feel like crap. So what does that mean personally? When it comes to my trading today, if I feel like crap, I'm going to be trading less. The last thing I want to do is add stress level to my daily life. You know, this casino, this market is open every day this year, except for holidays and things of that nature. But we're looking at the VIX. The VIX is up to what, 27 now? 29. Holy shit. It's up 20% pre-market. So when the VIX is popping like that, I'm just going to stand clear. The UVXY is popping as well. It's had inflow for the past 2 days. Again, UVXY indicating future volatility, VIX indicating current volatility. Until I see the volatility come down a little, tells me the market could stabilize. You know, I'm really unsure, and I want to use the levels of support and resistance. Oh, we've got Romeo doing a live stream today. So for the people, and there's a good amount of people watching right now, please, Romeo is going live at 9:15. He's talking about his orbs, his candlesticks. Now, Romeo's trades are off the chart, especially since I don't like to trade early in the morning at 9:30 a.m. This is great because Romeo loves to trade, and he's going to give you the price action on certain stocks and ETFs right out of the gate. What do we got here? Hey, yeah, 59 people are currently watching. We have 3 likes. Yeah, I mean, if you like what I do, please give me a thumbs up. I see people making comment on the side and stuff like that. It's important because YouTube uses the algorithm. So the more questions, the more comments, the more thumbs up, the more it'll show the video out to other people. So if you like what I do every morning, please. So again, Romeo's live trading at 9:15, talking about pre-market strategy, what he's looking at. He'll mention what he gets into. Hey, I'm looking at the XLE puts or calls. These are my strike. I'm going out 2 weeks. Remember, give yourself enough time, cash accounts, trade wise, don't over lever. And I'll see you guys on Discord shortly. Have a great morning, everybody. And trade